ricks like bats, and tore in at open chamber windows and cowered close to hedges, and in short went anywhere for safety. But the oddest feat they achieved was to take advantage of the sudden opening of Mr. Pecksniff's front door, to dash wildly into his passage, whither the wind, following close upon them, and finding the back door open, incontinently blew out the lighted candle held by Miss Pecksniff, and slammed the front door against Mr. Pecksniff, who was at that moment entering, with such violence that in the twinkling of an eye he lay on his back at the bottom of the steps. Being by this time weary of such trifling performances, the boisterous rover hurried away rejoicing, roaring over moor and meadow, hill and flat, until it got out to sea, where it met with other winds similarly disposed, and made a night of it. In the meantime, Mr. Pecksniff, having received from a sharp angle in the bottom step but one a knock on the head, lay placidly staring at his own street door. And it would seem to have been more suggestive in its aspect than street doors usually are, for he continued to lie there rather a lengthy and unreasonable time, without so much as wondering whether he was hurt or no. Neither, when Miss Pecksniff inquired through the keyhole in a shrill voice which might have belonged to the wind in its teens, "Who's there?" did he make any reply. Nor, when Miss Pecksniff opened the door again, and shading the candle with her hand, peered out and looked provokingly round him and about him and over him and everywhere but at him, did he offer any remark or indicate in any manner the least hint of a desire to be picked up. Miss Pecksniff was about to close the door again, when Mr. Pecksniff, being still at the bottom of the steps, raised himself on one elbow and sneezed. "That voice!" cried Miss Pecksniff. "My parent!" At this exclamation, another Miss Pecksniff bounced out of the parlour, and the two Miss Pecksniffs, with many incoherent expressions, dragged Mr. Pecksniff into an upright posture. "Pa!" they cried in concert. "Pa! Speak, Pa! Do not look so wild, my dearest Pa!" But as a gentleman's looks in such a case of all others are by no means under his own control, Mr. Pecksniff continued to keep his mouth and his eyes very wide open and to drop his lower jaw, and as his hat had fallen off and his face was pale and his hair erect and his coat muddy, the spectacle he presented was so very doleful that neither of the Miss Pecksniffs could repress an involuntary screech. "That'll do," said Mr. Pecksniff. "I'm better." "He's come to himself," cried the youngest Miss Pecksniff. "He speaks again," exclaimed the eldest. With which joyful words they kissed Mr. Pecksniff on either cheek and bore him into the house. Presently the youngest Miss Pecksniff ran out again to pick up his hat, his brown paper parcel, his umbrella, his gloves, and other small articles, and that done and the door closed, both young ladies applied themselves to tending Mr. Pecksniff's wounds in the back parlour. They were not very serious in their nature, being limited to abrasions on what the eldest Miss Pecksniff called the knobby parts of her parent's anatomy, such as the knees and elbows, and to the development of an entirely new organ unknown to phrenologists on the back of his head. These injuries having been comforted externally with patches of pickled brown paper, and Mr. Pecksniff having been comforted internally with some stiff brandy and water, the eldest Miss Pecksniff sat down to make the tea, which was all ready. In the meantime, the youngest Miss Pecksniff brought from the kitchen a smoking dish of ham and eggs, and settling the same before her father, took up her station on a low stool at his feet, thereby bringing her eyes on a level with the tea-board. Mr. Pecksniff was a moral man, a grave man, a man of noble sentiments and speech, and he had had her christened Mercy. Mercy. Oh, what a charming name for such a pure-souled being as the youngest Miss Pecksniff. Her sister's name was Charity. There was a good thing. Mercy and Charity. And Charity, with her fine, strong sense and her mild, yet not reproachful gravity, was so well named, and did so well set off and illustrate her sister. What a pleasant sight was that, the contrast they presented, to see each loved and loving one sympathizing with and